excited again for a new episode. First of all, this book has been great. It's kind of been educating me on a lot of ways. Steve has always been really great on educating our company, educating our interns, and just allowing us just to focus on learning. We'll talk a little bit more about our culture of learning at Fokcus. But Stephen, can you talk a little bit about like the book and what we've talked about in the previous episodes?
Yeah, totally. So just kind of a quick before we get started, if you have a chance, feel free to hit that like button or leave a comment below. We want to learn from you as much as you might want to learn from us. So feel free to share your thoughts, ask a question, whatever that may be. And all the interactions we get with videos like this help push it out to more people. So you leaving that like or leaving that comment could push this video out to an entrepreneur who may benefit from, hearing some things we mentioned today, right? So if you found something super insightful, it's an easy way to just keep the ball rolling, right?
I agree.
But yeah, this video is kind of a continuation of some of our previous videos. We talked about risk, right? We talked about different roles risk can play in your career. We talked about entrepreneurship. We talked about working at a startup. We kind of even touched on starting a startup, right? And we're a little biased because we come from the startup space, right? But we want to start that conversation, start that dialogue about risk in your career, whatever that may be. Because it's something that we all have to deal with, right?
Definitely. And I know the concept we're more dear to us is this kind of learning concept and how that plays its role in risk. You want to delve into that, Stephen?
Yeah, totally. So a lot of the concepts we mentioned in the previous videos and the one today are from interviews with startup founders, things like that. And then also we do have this one resource, Skin in the Game. It talks a little about risk and different ways that it plays a role in our lives. And so some of the concepts are taken from there as well. So if you're excited about some of the things we learned today, you can also dive into that or ask a question, and we might be able to point you to some other resources as well. But yeah, so the concepts we want to talk about today is kind of this balance between learning and earning in your career, right? No matter what stage you are, no matter what career path you go on, there's always this two sides of the coin, right? Learning and earning. So wanted to dive into that. Now learning on one hand is very important, right? It's important in just about everything we do, whether it's in our career or not.
Definitely.
Yeah. So now there's a lot of things that are obviously worth learning, whether they be, something that advances your career, something that, allows for personal growth, something that might help you out, in some area of your life. Right. And so there's a lot of things that you can learn depending on the position that you take or what avenue you go in your career. Right. And so I know we talked about a lot of avenues in previous videos, but to kind of dive into, let's say, working at a startup or taking on a let's say something outside of your wheelhouse. For instance, in your career, you may have an opportunity to, let's say, learn to build something from scratch, right? You may have opportunity to ship a product or service to a huge amount of people, say like millions of people, right? Do something that impacts a huge amount of people. You might be able to jump into a role where you have to make hard decisions or you have to make hard product decisions, right? In developing products or whatever that may be, right? We have people on our team and, Alex Waters and things like that who talk about customer discovery and, customer acquisition, right? So you may have to jump into a role where you may be manually acquiring customers through, some sort of customer acquisition, right? Or just hustling and doing sales. You also might have to jump into a role where let's say you're hiring or managing a team, right? Which can benefit you later on in your career or even in different aspects of your life, right? These are all examples of great things you can learn and kind of on that learning component of that learning and earning in your career that can really help you in a lot of different ways and propel you to new heights.
Yeah, and just on that note, I was just remembering last night I was a part of this kind of income sharing agreement graduation we were doing in San Diego. It was a virtual one, and one of the things I actually really learned from some of the graduates is just how important it was to learn at their stage in life, and it was how it actually even just gave them extra energy and encouragement. So learning is this kind of magical component that even as you're going through your career, I always encourage people to at least learn or read or do something a little bit differently each day to even maybe even stretch you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, learning isn't let's say specific to like a really risky like career decision, or doing something bold, working for a startup, starting a business, right? Some of the things we mentioned aren't specific to that, right? There was an interview by Palantir co-founder Gary Tan, and once upon a time he said he used this phrase, which I thought was really cool. Once you catch lightning in a bottle, it takes a team to hold on to it. And of course, he's referring to a lot of things in the startup space and big ideas, right? But kind of taking a step back from that, you can also say it applies to your career as well. So opportunities to learn exist in companies no matter what business phase they're in, right? We talked about the commando and army and police roles, right, or phases of a business. But even if you don't work for a startup, even if you work for an established company, right, there's always going to be opportunities to learn. And so, because it takes a team to really accomplish something great. And because of this, all great companies really emphasize, or a cornerstone of all great companies is employee growth and learning, right? And so there's always going to be opportunities to learn in most places that you go.
And I would always encourage people to like at Fokcus, we have this kind of culture of learning where everyone learns something and then teaches each other something, right? You can even do that environment, even in a company that you haven't started, right? Just having a kind of like these kind of study groups that you actually have. I always feel like that's always good. This kind of peer-to-peer learning is as powerful as like learning traditionally with maybe a mentor or something of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. And it could just be, making choices, to, further a culture of learning, let's say in your own life, right? In your own personal family, or, just friends you have and things like that, right? There's always things you can learn in different aspects of your life, and they might, carry on to other aspects of your life, right? No matter whether it's in your career or not.
Now, I know we're really biased at Focus on Learning, even we do machine learning, and that's how we actually do our matching. But I know this earning part is actually really crucial for people too. And I love how you always have this kind of balance, Stephen.
Yeah, so kind of the other side of the coin, right? The other side of that balancing act is earning, right? So earning is of course a lot more straightforward, right? It's, you think about it in monetary terms for the most part. The interesting thing about earning though is generally the higher salary that gets offered in whatever position, career path that you go, the less overall risk, right? And what we mean is usually that, if the company is able to pay you that much, or, X amount, right? They're able to, they don't have to mitigate the risk with other options. Let's say, things like, we'll talk about in a minute, like equity, or, benefits and things like that, right? So it's kind of an interesting balance there.
It is. I know on the startup and way that works is actually it's a unique opportunity for people to actually have this kind of ownership. And there's always different ways that works with startups. One is this aspect of vesting, where it's actually kind of like 4 to 5 years, but each year you get more and more ownership in the company that you're working for. And actually, is in some ways, is actually inspiring, right? Because as you're helping the company grow, you're growing, even with your equity and even with your net worth and things of that nature. But it's interesting concept that that I think a lot of people would, I would say, just experience it once.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so equity is kind of a neat concept to talk about, right? And some people may not understand or know much about equity, right? If you aren't in the startup space, or maybe your only influence into kind of the equity space is through like investing in the stock market, right? Or like a 401k or something, right? But for those of you who don't know, equity is, of course, this percentage ownership of a company. It's similar to owning shares of a company through the stock market, right? Now, this company, of course, could be a startup, right? You could work for them and get some equity options, like Kurling said. There could be a vesting schedule, but it doesn't have to be a startup, right? It could be a private entity, it could be a public corporation, even big companies. Let's say if you work for Amazon, you can get stock options. If you work for Tesla, you can get stock options. Even if you are, I had some friends who were baristas at Starbucks to work through college, right? And they had stock options at the end of the day, right? For Starbucks, which is really cool. So equity is kind of plays a neat role in your career path, right? In this earning kind of phase.
I like that. I like that. I know in my career, I had this kind of concept of like these kind of three phases I go in, Stephen. And the first phase was always this kind of learning phase, where I was actually understanding, being part of a new role, new responsibilities. I had a lot of mentorship during that phase, but it allowed me just to be patient with myself and just learn. The second phase was this kind of peer to peer, where I was actually working along my peers, working with them, me teaching them something, them teaching me things as I grow, even especially even management. That was kind of one thing I had to kind of understand. And then the last phase I was always in is this storytelling, actually explaining people, maybe interns coming in, new employees, hey, this is some of the things I would actually probably do, or this is what I would read, or here's an article. So those are the three phases I usually go in and I put myself in. Each one of those phases has kind of earning potential, right? That initial phase, I was actually maybe in this kind of category of just learning, being just on the ground floor. It was great. A lot of learning was actually there, actually initially, that helped me propel, but my earning potential wasn't as much. In fact, maybe my vesting hasn't even started yet. But as I progressed through those phases, I learned more, but I also actually gained more with equity and even just more income. But I always tell people those three phases are really good. Either you're going in a new company, going in a big company, or just starting a company. Being patient with yourself on each one of those phases and getting help.
Yeah, I think, that's a great story, Kurling. I think there's a lot of people who can take a lot away from stories like that.
Steven, so I just thank you again. This has actually been a really great series for me. I've been learning a lot, and I know in some ways I know like that next next couple of episodes I'm excited actually too. So, but thank you so much for always being so gracious with your time, and I just appreciate your all your thoughts on these things.
Yeah, thank you, Kurling. Well, I appreciate you and everything, us having these conversations as well. I guess to kind of close out the topic of learning and earning, we could just mention that that learning and earning are never mutually exclusive, right? Whatever role that you're going to be in, there's going to be a portion of both, right? And so, we talk about this balancing act, and we talk about two sides of the coin, right? Or using these analogies, but you never have earning and no learning, or learning and no earning, right? No matter how much risk you take, whether you take a job with a large salary, or you work at, let's say you take something risky and work at, let's say, a startup with a high risk of failure, and you might have a lower salary and take more equity options, right? But just know that there is no right answer in terms of risk tolerance in somebody's career, right? There's no, one size fits all. What may be right for you may not be right for somebody else, or vice versa, right? So ultimately, that means the best way forward is for you to determine what best suits you, right? What best suits the path that you want to take, and make choices to be able to travel along that path, right?
Yeah, so true. That's a great words to live by.
Yeah, it's easier to say it than sometimes live by it, but it's something that I guess we can all strive for, right?
Definitely. Well, thank you again, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you, Kurling. I guess just to close out, just to echo some of the thoughts from the beginning, if you have a chance, feel free to give us a like, feel free to leave some comments below. We want to learn from you as much as you want to learn from us, right? We don't want this to just be, a one-sided discussion. We want to continue this, with everyone, in our community, right? So if you have a chance, feel free to ask a question, share your thoughts, whatever it may be in the comments. We'd love to see what you have to say. And all these interactions with videos like this help push it out to more people. So if you found something really interesting and really insightful from this video, any interaction that you get could push it out to somebody else who may, find it equally as insightful, right? And you guys may network in the comments. Who knows, right? So it's a neat thing that you can do with videos like this. But as always, we will see you in the next video.